I was wrong. I was super wrong.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 107 of The Horror of Babylon, where we discuss both film adaptations of Let the Right One In. And we will find out, did Oscar let the right one in?
That's a question that the movies really want you to ask.
They really, really do. And I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is Grandpa-san.
Ryan, can I come in?
No. Well, you can, but only if we kiss with blood on our face.
Okay. That's the fan art I want.
Speaking of fan art, thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron.
And Ben, the Fourth.
Patron of Hope. And Mia the Fifth, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain, yo.
She makes it rain. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at shop.fullhorsemancomics.com. And if you see that creepy guy moving in next door,
it's probably Ron.
It's probably Ronald III.
I was going to say, I think Ron would be a great casting for a Hawkins.
Yeah.
I think he could do that role.
I also think that he could do that role. Trigger warning. Daniel, tell the people what there is to be triggered about.
Okay, a little bit less than from the book.
A lot of bit less.
You still have child murder in general, child violence, bullying, social isolation. Really, just if you find, like, especially with the Swedish movie, if you just find dreariness or loneliness triggering, they kind of get that across on camera.
Yeah, very much so. And I think the biggest thing is the bullying.
Yeah.
Like, in both movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard at some points.
It really reminded me of my childhood, which is probably why I like these movies so much. I just lent both of my my DVD and my Blu-ray copies to Mia because she had never gotten to see the movies. She's a big fan of the book.
It is an excellent novel. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so our history with both films. I'd never seen either of them. I remembered. I mean, Daniel has mentioned the movie on and off throughout most of the time.
Since college, yeah.
But I was kind of shocked that I had never really heard of the American version.
Yeah. It kind of flew under the radar.
And it's a Matt Reeves movie, and I love Matt Reeves.
And it's kind of shocking how much it flew under the radar, but I kind of have an explanation. Because they've released, not like super close, but close enough to each other. And there was such a huge fan base of this Swedish movie, and people were watching the trailer going, why don't people just watch the Swedish one? And that was before, like, these were, like, big topics of conversation. This was, like, back in 2007, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So this was, like... So you already had a fan base kind of rallying against the upcoming remake for various reasons. We'll get more into that.
How come that didn't happen with The Ring?
I think because The Ring released a little bit earlier before people realized it was a Japanese remake.
Okay.
Because I didn't know it was based off of a Japanese movie for years.
Oh. All right, cool. So, in your history with these movies? You saw them, you liked them.
Yeah, I saw them in I saw the Swedish one in college. I'd seen a bunch of YouTubers that I liked at the time were talking about it. I love vampire movies. So when I saw it at Walmart, I just bought it, just based off the recommendations, and watched it, and sort of fell in love with that entire story. To the point, like, you know, as soon as I got a chance, like, I found out it was based on a book, read the book. I saw the American remake opening weekend. I didn't watch the TV show. I still haven't seen the TV show.
I have now experienced every piece of media involving this story except for the TV show.
Yeah.
I've even read the comic book now.
And if I don't support pirating, but since the original creator doesn't make any money off of the TV show, I'm glad it was canceled.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad for, like, people involved, but, like, at the same time, I'm like, don't screw over original creators.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people who work on the set who had nothing to do with that decision.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for the producers who screwed him over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good balance.
Yeah.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Background. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to do background on the Swedish movie, general discussion on the Swedish movie, background on the American movie, and discussion on it, and we'll
kind of bounce back and forth.
Yeah, compare and contrast along the way, and then we'll do scary shit, Kings and Koontz, and keep going. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so background, Let the Right One In was directed by Thomas Alfredson, who has also directed some other Swedish films. It was written by the author. The screenplay was written by the author, John Lindquist. It had a budget of 29 million kroners, which at the time translates to about 4.5 million American dollars, in a box office of about 11.2 American dollars. I don't know if that is worldwide or just in Sweden, but either way, it did well. And just, like, based on, like, critic and audience appeal, like, it's a very, very highly acclaimed movie. I think it's like a 98 Rotten Tomato, 95 audience.
It's super high.
Yeah, very, very high. Has a very stellar reputation. So, general discussion on Let the Right One In. When was it released? It was released in 2008. That's why you do outlines, Ryan. January 26, 2008. So appropriate that it was released in the winter. That's just... Yeah. That makes so much sense.
So it came out about a year after they did the English translation of the book.
I actually had thought, if you look at the production companies, there's like there's a couple TV companies listed, and there was, like, while I was watching, like, the first half of this movie, I thought it was a made-for-TV movie. It is not. It is a theatrical film.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's kind of the difference between, like, foreign movies and the big Hollywood blockbusters, which we'll get into when we talk about the Hollywood remake. Okay, so general discussion, and I'm just gonna let you go. Okay, well, this movie is one, like, especially when I first watched it, was one of the most different at the time, anyway. Because this was around the time, you know, I started having disposable income. I was in college. That's when I started watching, like...
You had disposable income? Oh, you didn't have a kid, never mind.
Yeah. And I lived at home. I still live at home. Yay, divorce. So, you know, I buy this movie, and this was around the time, like, the only other foreign films I watched were Godzilla movies at the time.
And anime.
But I always watched them in English.
Yeah. It's hard to think of anime as a foreign film, even though obviously it is.
So I start to buy these movies that are getting, like, these recommendations, and that's kind of my first exposure to foreign films. So around the same time as when I started, like, watching Ringu and the Japanese horror movies. Like, I'd seen the American Grudge in theaters, and then I was like watching the Ju-On series and getting exposed to all of that. And all of this, I remember that, like, even at the time and when I rewatched it recently, thinking this is so disconnected from like traditional Hollywood like storytelling. It's very somber. It's a very quiet movie, which is probably the biggest difference between it and the American one.
I think there's almost no music in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it's these like, and that when I was talking about earlier how like it gets that like sense of social isolation across, I think not having music helps that, where it's just these like really wide shots of just Oscar in this vast wasteland of ice emptiness. But that's my first exposure to that kind of filmmaking, like foreign films, and I remember being just so sort of enthralled with it, thinking it was so beautiful to watch. For this rewatch, I watched it twice. I watched it in the subbed and in the dubbed. The dub actually wasn't as bad. It wasn't like Battle Royale bad.
Yeah, I watched the sub, and I am not going to rewatch it dubbed.
I mean, it's definitely not necessary. But I also have way more free time on my hands than you do. I don't have kids.
Even if I did, like, I could never do like dubbed live action movies. I'm fine with dubbed animated movies.
Typically I only recommend it for Godzilla if you're into like the campy aspects of Godzilla.
I don't even generally do it for Godzilla.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't do it for the serious Godzilla movies, but for like Godzilla versus Gigan, I think it actually helps the entertainment value. But that's my opinion, and people hate me for it. But so this movie is really my exposure to like the foreign marketplace and different ways to make movies on like small micro budgets and what they're able to accomplish with those very small budgets. And I've really fell in love with the characters and the storytelling, and that's my background on this. And do you want to talk about the characters, or where are we at on here?
Yeah, I mean, we're just discussing the movie generally. We can talk about Oscar.
Oscar, I do love this kid. I think he did a very good job.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna try. My only problem is now that I've read the book, I really want them to do this movie for a third time. I know it's not necessary. I just want them to cast a chubby kid.
I didn't think that this kid did a bad job, but I didn't like him as Oscar. Have you ever read a book and then watched a movie and not liked a character, not because they necessarily were written badly or acted badly,
but it's just not the character that you're envisioning?
Yeah, that's the experience I had with this movie.
I had a little bit of an easier time because I watched the movie first. But now that I've read the book a few times, I'm like, him being kind of chubby and out of shape and then going to like get in shape is like part of his character journey. Yeah. You can do that with a skinny kid.
Like he's weak, like he's like Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wants to get stronger.
But at the same time, I'm just like, like the kid who played Ben in It.
Yeah.
I know he's too old now, but I want a kid like that. I want us to do one more time.
Yeah. Well, just wait 20 years.
Yeah.
And
let me direct it.
Sure, why not? But yeah, like, I don't think he didn't do a bad job at all.
You go ahead.
But it's just not how I pictured the character.
I think the one thing that he got down very well was that him playing a serial killer out in the yard. Like, he looked like a little psychopath.
I think both kids who play this character do that well.
Yeah.
We'll try and hold off on the comparisons till we get to the second one. But yes, he got across the part of Oscar that is a total freak.
Yeah, weird kid doing weird kid shit.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. Something that they did in this movie that I thought actually helped the movie compared to the book is he has 2 visits with his dad. One visit goes well. It's super early in the movie. It's kind of short. And then when he goes back, that's when they do the scene with the alcohol. So they kind of give you like, here's a good visit, here's sort of the more somber visit.
I felt like they didn't give enough background on his relationship with his parents. Like, it gets like the general gist of it across. Like, you understand the relationship he has. But what I didn't like is the worst part about that scene in the book is that it happens every time he goes to visit his dad, and you don't get that at all in the movie.
One of the things I like about this movie, and this is probably just a taste thing, and they kind of do this in both movies, but it's way more so in this one, is there's a lot of inferences you have to make. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is, we're not going to sit there and tell you what's going on. You kind of have to just figure it out. And a lot of that, they don't do it as well with the dad, but who I think they do it really well with is his mom.
Yeah, but there's no way to infer that that's a regular behavior from his dad.
Yeah. But, like, with his mom, like, you have this, like, goofy sort of almost parasitical relationship, which, not great to do to kids, but you can kind of get what's going on just by watching how they behave around each other.
Yeah.
And, this was, again, one of my first exposures to a lot of, like, show don't tell with storytelling, which is probably one of the reasons I like this, maybe not the movie, but, like, the story overall a lot.
So, someone who was, like, I pictured in my head, and I was super impressed with the performance, was Lena Lee Anderson.
So good.
Who plays, Eli.
Yeah. I think they pronounce it Ellie in this movie.
They do. But the audiobook pronounces it Eli.
Yeah.
Which makes, because it's Elias.
And I believe that's correct.
So, before we get into it, and it doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter if this character is played by a boy or a girl. But going into it, I kind of assumed that they would have a boy play this character, because the character is a boy. Mm-hmm. Because it just, in my head, I thought, like, it would be easier to kind of dress a boy up, because that's what...
Yeah, it's a prepubescent boy coming across as a girl.
But it absolutely worked.
It's perfectly fine.
And ultimately, it doesn't really matter, because when a person is that age, you can dress them up either way.
I still remember, and again, we're a spoiler podcast, but one of the things that I remember most about this movie, like, remember watching the first time, is when he is like, would you still like me if I wasn't a girl? Mm-hmm. You're like, you don't know what they're talking about at first.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about it, and then the scene, it doesn't show Eli's background at all.
No.
But you get the castration shot when Oscar goes to peek at her.
Yeah, I was not ready for that.
And then that was one of my first things. I like when I'm sitting there watching the movie for the first time, I'm like, oh, you are a boy. Mm-hmm. And that's I talked about this in the book episode, and this was one of the first times that I actually, because I didn't used to put that kind of like thought into myself. Mm-hmm. But like, if you met somebody that you really vibed with, were really attracted to, and then they just weren't the way you were expecting them, how would you feel about that? That I think good movies can cause you to have some sort of self-reflection or introspection on those topics.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the book, so at least how I interpreted it, I think the book ends with the nature of their relationship being a little ambiguous. And I think this movie kind of pushes them more in the romantic direction. This
movie is where the big Twilight comparisons, I think, came in. Which
honestly, I think I prefer to think that Oscar and Eli do have a romantic relationship.
I think it's cute. I love it. It's like one of my biggest, I guess, ships.
And also just like, it's kind of romantic that he becomes, well, this gets into the short story, but he becomes a vampire eventually. You can think he becomes a vampire, which means they're both kids forever, which presumably means there's not going to be a sexual component to their relationship, and it's just that they want to be together. Yeah. Obviously there could be a sexual, but I mean not really, because he is shit.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
We don't really need to talk about a hypothetical sexual relationship between them.
But why not? I
mean, I will, but at the end of the day, I like the relationship because I find it very cute. Mm-hmm. And I think I hate to keep saying I relate to like the 12-year-old sociopath here.
He's not a sociopath.
No, not really.
No.
But he's a kid who's like infatuated with fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Who people probably would like bully and call a psycho if they knew.
Because he's bullied and because he has problems with his parents, not because he has like a deep mental issue.
Yeah, and like I had a bunch of morbid fascinations, and so I kind of just like I wanted to work out for him because I'm like, oh, I want him to have the cute little boyfriend.
Yeah.
Or girlfriend, or however you want to identify next. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I like the relationship. I think it works. It didn't work as well for me in this movie just because I didn't really feel like that's not really Oscar. That's like somebody who's pretending to be Oscar. But Eli was so good.
Eli was really good.
He was just excellent. Okay. Hawken, oh my god, this is like the biggest fuck up of a serial killer I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, he's got that kid in the trees. I'm like, there are cars right there. There are literally cars driving by.
He's not very good at this.
No, and then at the freaking gym, and it's just like, oh my god, you are just asking to get caught. we will get into this later. I think that's one of the things that the American remake does a little bit better. And I'll get into my defenses of that when we get to it. Okay, because I also have an opinion on that, and I'll save that. What do you think of Hawken?
I love Hawken in this movie. This is the best time to bring it up. Is a lot of people who first watched this movie did not read the book, and a lot of the fans of the movie for the longest time did not read the book. So I came across a lot of fan theories at the time, and a lot of fan theories at the time were Hawken was just an Oscar before Oscar. He used to be a kid that Eli came across, seduced, and Oscar's gonna be his replacement because he keeps fucking up now. And that's like this supposed to be like the horror subtext of the film.
Have you read the comic book yet?
No. The American remake confirms that theory, which is the reason apparently that he wrote "Let the Old Dreams Die," because he didn't like the fan theory that got out there, because that's not what he wanted to get across.
Well, just remember all that when you read the comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So in the novel, the pedophilia, I don't like it, but I think it serves the story well enough. What bothers me more is the fact that he's the Terminator and he can't die. And I think the movie is just a way better adaptation of the character, and it shows that neither of those things are necessary to tell the story of Oscar and Eli.
Yeah. And again, there's it might be like inferences that the author didn't intend. But there's a lot of visual storytelling going on between Eli and Hawken.
Yeah, and you can still canonically within this movie universe, he still could be, as the British would say, a pedophile.
A nonce. You're fucking nonce, mate.
As it is very strange, like how jealous he gets, and is that just because he's a familiar?
Yeah.
Would Straker get super jealous if Barlow started hanging out with somebody else?
And that's where like fans at the time were like, he's getting jealous because he's realizing he's going to be replaced if he doesn't like do what he's always been doing for her.
Well, he does a shitty job of it.
Yeah.
So he should be replaced.
I fucking love when Eli's screaming at him in this movie. And he's just sitting there all like, sorry. He looks so upset.
Yeah, well, he should be upset. He sucks. Alright, so more general discussion.
How did you like Virginia's fire scene?
Okay, so I'll give you kind of an overall of me and the effects or lack of effects in this movie.
Okay.
So I'm watching it, and it's the scene where he kills the kid in the trees, and it's just like way back. It reminds me so much of that scene from Exorcist 3 in the hallway, and I'm like, oh god, I know why Daniel loves this. But like, nothing happens. You see him stab the kid, and there's like no effects. There's nothing. He strings him up, and you don't even really see much blood. And then the scene at the gym where he tries to kill the kid, and then he pours the acid on in his face. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, so there are just no special effects in this movie whatsoever. Fine. I'm like, maybe it's Maybe it's a creative choice. Maybe it's a budgeting thing. Fine. I don't like it, but fine. Let's just keep watching. And then it just turns out that they just decide, for whatever reason, to slow roll all of their special effects.
They saved it all for the money shots.
I feel like there are some money shots that they didn't save it for, but I did like Virginia's scene. Like, in terms of the effects, the scenes I really liked are Virginia's scene, the bleeding scene, and then where Eli is licking the blood off the ground, and it just shows her, like, her vampire face.
Yeah.
Just like all of those were very impressive. I enjoyed them. There was some awkward CG in this movie. Granted, it was 2008, and granted, it was not a Hollywood movie. It was I just assume that the Swedish had less money to throw at their special effects. So, it kind of is what it is. But yeah, the fire scene was great. It's not as impactful in the movie because you don't have nearly as much background on Locke and Virginia.
We get more than we get for the American remake, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
But it works.
Yeah. Well, what about the bullying and the bullies?
I thought it was great. That the kid who plays the bully, his name, they changed his name.
Yeah.
For whatever.
Don't get me started.
Connie, played by Patrick Rydenmark. I think, aside from Eli, I think he was the best child actor in the movie.
Did a pretty good job.
He did a really good job.
I love seeing him getting smacked with the stick every time.
Yeah. It was really good. Really enjoyed it.
I like that they have the one kid who in the book is like sort of Oscar's friend when it's convenient.
His fake friend, yeah.
And that kid's chubby.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, that kid should have been Oscar.
They can't make a fat actor like the main character unless it's like absolutely essential that their character is overweight. And I don't like it.
But I kind of liked that at the end of the movie, like during the pool scene, he's the only one left and he's just bawling in his hands. I love that shot.
Yeah.
Seeing Connie getting smacked in the ear every time is so gratifying.
Yeah. I really like that. And
in this one, Oscar doesn't care. He doesn't try to like block the beetling himself. He like relishes in it. He's like, oh, so that's what it's like to hit back.
And I really love the Spanish teacher where he's
so good.
He's just stuck. He's like, okay, something is obviously going on very wrong over here. But over here, I just saw Oscar whack this kid. Even though in my back of my mind, I probably know that kid deserves it, and it was probably self-defense. So I'm going to go over here. But it just, in the book and in both movies, you get to see that brief second of conflict of, what do I do?
I love the, right before the big scene of the movie, the pool scene, when he's like working out with Oscar and he's outside of the pool doing this to that goofy ass music.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is so like 80s workout routine.
There were some very 80s things in here. The leotards that the girls wore.
Yeah, I love it.
The gym shorts that the boys wear.
I just love something about this whole aesthetic where like the gym teacher's like, this is how I make you strong, man, strong. You do leg things in pool.
I mean, that is something that people do.
Yeah. But it looks goofy.
Yeah, it does.
Especially with the music that he's like choosing to use in that scene. Mm-hmm. I wish I had that music on hand because it's perfect for that scene. And then like the other bully comes up and starts like doing what the gym teacher was doing.
Yeah.
To like keep distracting Oscar. I'm like, it's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let me in.
No.
What happens if I don't let you in? So this one
then
came
you
out
stay outside.
2010, so a couple years later.
Yep. 2 years later, apparently it's an American and British adaptation. It's really more of a remake of the Swedish film than a second adaptation of the novel.
Yeah.
Very similar to the new It movies. It is directed by Matt Reeves, who has done a lot of stuff. I love him for the Planet of the Apes. Oh, that's Thomas.
Some people love him for the Batman.
Batman is good. It's good. Also Cloverfield, which I've never actually seen Cloverfield. But I'm a big fan of the new Planet of the Apes trilogy. When I actually, just being off of social media, sometimes I just miss things. Mm-hmm. Like, I never heard that they were making a fourth one. Mm-hmm. And I went to see The Marvels.
And they got the trailer.
In the trailer, I literally cried.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Are you okay?" And I was just like, "I'm so happy. I don't know what to do. I'm so happy." I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm a big, like,
I
fan of the Apes.
loved that I was able to hear you and Emma during the entire Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Yeah.
That brought me so much joy.
So Matt Reeves, cool guy. He also wrote the screenplay, which I think is typical. I think he writes and directs a lot. Yeah. The film was released September 13th, 2010, autumn, which is good. I think if not winter, then autumn is the second best choice. I had a budget of $20 million. Unfortunately, box office of $27 million.
Yeah.
So pretty big bomb. But has a pretty good standing with critics and audiences. Not quite as good as the original, but still has some pretty impressive scores from reviews and such.
So I was going to look up the exact quote, but I didn't. One of my favorite YouTubers at the time was reviewing this movie, and he liked this one better than the Swedish movie.
I like it better in some ways.
And the thing he said is it was just an example of how sometimes a budget is important.
So, more background. We don't talk a lot about awards, but the one that we do bring up is the Saturn Awards, because that's the only one that really matters. This film was nominated for Best Director, Best Makeup, Best Music, Best Male Young Actor, and Best Writing, and it won Best Female Young Actor and Best Horror Film. So, pretty impressive showing at the Saturn Awards.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I have very confused feelings.
I also have very confused feelings.
There's things I like better, and there's things I don't like better. And I haven't talked a lot about the original movie, but I do have some big complaints about the original movie, and some of them are fixed in the American version, but then the American version also has some separate issues that I didn't have with the Swedish one, and I feel like between them there's a very good adaptation of this book, but it just really threw me for a loop when they start off with them rushing Håkan to the hospital with his melted face.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple minutes. Okay, I know I know what's happening, but it's just like, why are we starting here?
I have a bunch of false memories about this movie, and the opening was one of them. I thought I opened on the wrong scene. Mm-hmm. I also, big false memory for both movies, I thought they did the blood bathtub in both movies.
They don't.
In either movie.
I don't know why either. It's an easy effect. You just fill a bathtub with fake blood.
It's so eerie and
And the poster of this movie is her laying against a bunch of red, and I assumed that was alluding to her in the bathtub.
They have another poster
I'm sorry.
That is literally just Abby in blood.
Mother of Dragons.
Abby, why didn't you tell us you used to be a boy? But fan fiction validated.
Okay, so let's start with Oscar.
What did they call him in this one?
Oh, I'm sorry, Owen.
Yeah, because they changed every freaking name,
which I hate.
Oscar is a name that people have in America.
Yeah, I mean Elias is too.
Yeah.
I mean the only one is
so's Ellie.
Yeah, and Håkan isn't even really that weird. I hate changing names for no reason. I kind of like that they changed it to New Mexico, because it's in Los Alamos, which, if you're not familiar with Mexican geography, not New Mexican geography, yes, New Mexico is all a big desert, but there's also very high points of elevation in the southern point of the Rocky Mountains, where snow is a very regular thing, and that's where this movie takes place. And it's a very good American parallel to Sweden.
Another false memory, that it is a very good one, but another one of my false memories was that they rewrote this to take place in Maine.
That would also work really well.
And I was ready to come in and like talk about Salem's Lot, and then I was watching it and I was like, oh, it's not Maine.
It also helped me a little bit that I just visited this part of the country literally a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and
Arizona, but still.
So one of the things I like is, Oscar's bullying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They changed it from calling him Piggy to Little Girl because he's a little twink boy.
Finish yours, and then I have a thing.
And I'm like, okay, if you're not going to cast a chubby kid, change the way he's being bullied. Why are you still eating candy as a coping mechanism?
Well, he just has a higher metabolism.
Okay.
The skinny people still eat junk food. CHEF. Like,
I guess I haven't watched him eat.
Not so much eating, but it's like he drinks Pepsi like it's water.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But he just has it. And not diet, not zero, just like regular Pepsi.
Okay.
And Mountain Dew. He's gotten better about it in recent years, but it's just his metabolism is just like a million.
Sky high.
Yeah. Okay, so this may get me made fun of, assuming someone listens to this. But I legitimately thought that there was going to be, the twist was that Owen was the opposite gender instead of Eli.
Yeah.
Very, very early in the movie, they start calling him little girl.
Like he was a trans boy that was being made fun of for like not presenting as a girl.
Yeah.
If this movie was made today, I think that's what they would have done.
Well, here, I started watching this. I did not know Chloe Grace Moretz was in this movie until I started watching it. And my first reaction was there, in all of the infinite universes, there is not a universe that exists where I would believe that Chloe Grace Moretz is actually a boy.
Yeah.
But, and then I'm watching it, and then Owen is getting made fun of, and they keep calling him little girl, little girl, little girl, and Owen actually looks more gender ambiguous than Abby does.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if the twist is that he's the one that's hiding what gender he is, as opposed... And I'm like, it's probably not. But then I convinced myself. I'm like, that's it. That's what's going to happen in this movie. I was wrong. I was super wrong.
I think that if this movie was made today, that's a twist we might get.
The other piece of evidence, this movie changes when she says, I'm not a girl.
Yeah.
It happens later in this movie than it does in the book or the original movie. And when that happened, I was like, just look at this is really happening. This is really happening. And of course it doesn't, but...
And then we also don't get the castration shot in this movie.
Yeah, which I was not super upset about.
My only problem with it is if you haven't read the book or seen the original Swedish movie, then you have no clue what Oscar's reaction even is.
Yes, which I completely agree. It is confusing.
I would have just either like not included that plot element, or I would have like not included that scene of him spying on her.
I really like Chloe Grace Moretz. Yes. I think she's an excellent actress.
Very good.
But I think she's a weird casting choice for this, because she doesn't look gender ambiguous at all.
Yeah.
I think maybe the call would have been just to eliminate that part of the story. I hate that because I really like that part of the story. I do too, and it's a very important part of the story. But at the same time, you cut out the castration shot. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to play that much of a role other than that, like, in this it's almost like a throwaway line. Mm-hmm. Where in the book it's like a big plot element, and in the Swedish novel you get a reveal, you get a shot.
Yeah. And they can't do what was in the book, because the book just says Eli comes in and takes off her robe, and Oscar sees that she has no penis. And you can't just do that.
And this movie was also made in America 2010.
Yeah.
So, like, what you could get away with doing, especially with kids, way different.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, we can't have a castrated boy be the love interest. That's gay. I hate that that's the thing, but that's
you're right.
That's
no,
what
you're right.
That's what it was. Some producer looked at Matt Reeves and said, "We can't have a castrated boy be the love interest that's gay. I guarantee it."
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, and it's just in 13 years, it's just flipped so hard.
Yeah, they would have Abby waving a whatever specific flag it is. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm against that, but that's what it would be doing. I think they'd probably lean too heavily into it.
I do think that I'm okay with the third adaptation, but at 10 years, 20 years, not now.
Not now.
Yeah.
I still think it's too soon, especially with the TV show, and I want to make sure that the writer gets all the money.
Yeah.
And I want
or his family at least.
Yeah, and I want chubby Oscar, boy Eli.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And maybe we can find I don't know how, and I hate criticizing when I can't give a solution, but I want a better way for Oscar to find out that Eli is actually legitimately a boy than that weird castration scene in the original or this utter confusion in the remake.
Yeah.
Because I don't really like either, but there's got to be another way. What I thought was just have Eli come out of the bath, and what I thought was going to happen is it shows him peeking on her, and then he walks away. What I thought was going to happen is he was going to walk out of the bedroom and say, "Oh, you want to see, do you?" And then open up his robe, show the back
from the back, yeah,
and say, "See, I really am not a girl.
I told you." Or even if you just say "I told you,"
yeah,
and then you can recall the previous conversation.
Yeah.
I think that would have been enough, honestly. I think
that would have been better than just being confused.
That honestly, that would be my Koontz for the American one. Is just they're so wishy-washy on it. You know what I mean?
My Koontz for both movies is the same, but I will
get into it.
No, I'm just going to save it for Kings and Koontz.
Okay.
Because I don't think there's a lot of discussion. I just think it is.
Okay.
Okay. Hawkins. What? That's not his name. What is his name in this movie?
My recast for him in my remake is going to be Jeremy Irons.
Okay. I'm sorry. He's just the father.
Yeah, they don't even name him.
He's played by Richard Jenkins, who is one of those ultimate character actors that you've literally seen in 1,000 movies.
And in this movie, it is revealed that he knew Abby as a child.
Yep.
And that added further confusion to the fan theories. Is
that what that picture was supposed to be?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, I didn't put that 2 and 2 together on that.
Yeah, it's and it added more fuel to that fan theory fire from people who hadn't read the books.
That makes the comic make even more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why he has lines like, "I've been doing this for too long. Maybe I want to get caught."
Yeah, okay.
So as opposed to Hawkins in the Swedish movie, who just sucks at being a serial killer, he's just getting too old and he's been doing it too long. So he's just finally which is how a lot of serial killers end up getting caught, is they just start fucking up.
So let's talk about that now, because I think he's a fuck up in both movies. And I thought when I first watched this, I was like, attacking somebody while they're driving just seems so insanely stupid.
It can be. I really like it in this movie, mostly because it's all a reference to the Zodiac Killer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why one of the few sketches of the Zodiac Killer is him wearing a plastic or a black bag over his face. Mm-hmm. And I've watched the commentary, so Matt Reeves talks about how that was the big inspiration, was he wanted to make him more like the Zodiac Killer. And there's a lot more serial killer imagery in this movie as opposed to the Swedish one. You even have Owen wearing the plastic mask over his face when he's playing.
God. That scene was almost too ridiculous.
Little girl.
That was almost too much. It's I get it. The kid's a freak. Stop.
I think you could still do that, but you would have to make it more realistic for a kid. Give him a Jason mask.
Yeah.
He's playing Friday the 13th because he's obsessed with slasher films. The
first one came out in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Okay, because this took place in 1983. So
they were big. They were super popular in the 80s.
Props to both movies. Oscar does not read Goosebumps in either movie.
I was looking.
I also looked whenever it showed his bookshelves. I was like,
Do you think John Lindquist, whenever he like wrote the screenplay, he was like, "Fuck," like he somebody like told him, so like when he wrote the screenplay, he took that all out.
I think he probably said something like, "Anybody who notices that is a giant nerd, and I don't care."
I don't care.
I don't care.
I am Swedish. My Swedish accent is worse than any of my accents.
Okay.
The bullies.
So I love the bully in this movie. The kid who plays the bully, he's the lead in Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And I think he's really good. I think both bullies in both movies.
I think he does a good job in this.
Yeah.
In both movies, they kind of insinuate that the older brother also bullies him, but in this one, they really lead into that.
Which is what I didn't like.
Okay.
I like that in the book, they're a family, and the older brother does what he does because he's watching out for his little brother.
That's my preference.
And then in the Swedish movie, it's not as explicit either way.
It's not as over the top. It's like goofy, normal older brothers giving you a.
But in this one, it's just like, oh, you see that the bully is bullied too, and it's all just a cycle. And like, I know that.
Yeah.
Like, I know every bully has been bullied. You don't have to show it to me. I get it.
I even think that the book's explanation of him just having a weird family life is better than him also being bullied.
Yeah.
Because sometimes bullies aren't also bullied in the same traditional way. They just have other shit going on.
Yeah, maybe they're bullied by the fact that their dad works too much, or they're bullied by the fact that their mom smokes instead of reading them a bedtime story. But
yeah, it doesn't have to be I don't like direct one-for-ones. Mm-hmm. I think that this is going to sound bad. I think it justifies their behavior too much in like a narrative sense.
Yeah.
Instead of explaining.
And that is Dylan Minnette, who I like him a lot. He's a good actor.
He's so good.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Goosebumps, I'm sorry. I fucking love
I still haven't watched it. It's on my list.
Apparently he's also in Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. I haven't seen that.
I also love seeing him get whacked in the face.
He's also in the newest Scream movie.
Huh, I wonder who he played.
Wes Hicks.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot more familiar, obviously, because this is an American movie, but there's a lot more familiar faces. We already said Richard Jenkins is one of those character actors. The kid who plays Owen, Cody Smith McPhee, you may know as the new Nightcrawler from X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. And, of course, Chloe Grace Moretz needs no introduction.
Yeah. She's probably the biggest name on this movie at this point.
Richard Jenkins has, like, I can only imagine, like, how many movies he's been in. But, yeah, obviously, he's not as big a star as she is. He's been in two... Oh, that's photos. It used to, like, tell you how many credits they had. I don't know. He's been 116.
That's been a lot of credits.
Yeah, he's been.
He was in Dahmer.
He was in Dahmer.
Oh, he played Jeffrey Dahmer's dad.
Lionel Dahmer.
Okay.
The Shape of Water, Kong Skull Island. Let's get a few more. He was in Turbo. Jack Reacher, The Cabin in the Wood. The Cabin. He's one of the two guys.
Oh, I feel so stupid.
He's one of the two analyst guys.
Yeah, that's such a good role.
Friends with Benefits, Hall Pass, Burn After Reading, Step Brothers, The Kingdom. He's been...
I want to see The Cabin in the Woods where they released the child vampire.
Yeah. Oh, and he was the FBI agent in Me, Myself, and Irene. I forgot about that.
I hate how much I love that movie.
And he's the psychiatrist, and There's Something About Mary. I actually saw a YouTube behind the scenes thing on Me, Myself, and Irene recently.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you haven't seen that movie in recent years.
Not in recent years.
So Jim Carrey is the white dad, and he has 3 black sons.
Yeah.
There's that scene at the beginning of the movie where he's like going off to work, and he goes like, kisses, and he makes them all like kiss him on the cheek. That was improvised. He did that. He just... It wasn't in the script. He just said kisses, and they just all like reluctantly like kiss him on the cheek, and they kept it in the movie.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I have a lot of fond memories of that movie.
I do too, but I have not rewatched it as an adult. I'm afraid to.
If we change our podcast to just watching weird white people movies,
Then we'll just do a Jim Carrey-a-thon.
yeah.
Watch Ace Ventura and all that stuff.
And then we'll do a Lou Anna-thon. We'll just watch everything she's ever done.
Good.
Yeah.
Every Brittany Murphy movie. Hold on, real quick. How many movies has Brittany Murphy done?
We're now the Brittany Murphy podcast.
Beck and I have slowly been rewatching King of the Hill.
Yeah.
And we just watched the episode with her dad. I hate that episode. Is so sad. I hate it so much. So she's been in 68 things, not 68 movies. But that's a lot.
I've purposefully not looked at the Noodle Girl IMDb.
I also haven't. Apparently, she was in 2 episodes of Boy Meets World. That's weird. Blossom. Okay. All right. Back to
Yeah.
all right. So we talked about Owen. We talked about Eli. We talked about Hawken. We talked about the bully.
So, like I said, the pedophile aspects are like completely excised from both films.
This one, I feel like there's a little bit more. He gets madder. He gets more jealous.
Which is explained from him being a person who...
The former Oscar.
Was a kid who grew up protecting and taking care of Abby this entire time.
Okay.
Which makes the relationship weirder, but it also... in the American movie, it objectively makes Abby a monster.
Well, I mean, in all versions, she kills people.
Is a monster.
Yeah.
But she's also like, in the book, Oscar still isn't sure if she's, like, being manipulative. Mm-hmm. This one just outright says, yeah, she looks for replacements and raises them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the comic yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so talk about effects. This one obviously has had more money and is a Hollywood movie, so obviously there's going to be more of a focus on effects and the violence and that sort of stuff. So before we talk about the actual effects themselves, I still feel like, similar to the Swedish movie, the violence in and of itself was really, I don't want to say tame, but just kind of like understated.
There's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think like the most violent thing that happens in the Swedish one is seeing the head drop in the pool.
Yeah.
And then this one is probably the not Virginia eating her own arm and then bursting into flame.
I liked that scene in both movies.
Yeah.
I thought that it was both were great.
My biggest issue with effects in this movie is Abby's attacks, where she becomes a rubber Spider-Man.
She reminded me of a gibbon.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a gibbon like swinging around in trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even they try to hide it by like making it super dark.
I'm sure it looks better than it would have in the day.
But at the same time, I remember it because I saw this movie in theaters. Even at the time, I went, that looks super fake. Where in the Swedish film, they just had little girl grab onto the person, which maybe doesn't look as dramatic.
I will tell you that I'm not crazy about the attack scenes in the Swedish movie, but at least they don't look fake.
Yeah, at least they don't look fake.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a happy compromise.
It's somewhere between these two movies.
And again, I really want a third adaptation.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a compromise between having little girl lazily just hug a person and then pretend to bite them on the neck, and fake CGI Spider-Man hidden shadows.
Kind of, I had like kind of a me moment with vampires after watching these two movies, and I sat down and I looked at my list of all the movies I've watched, and I looked at my list of the novels that I've read, and I was looking for like, okay, here's all the vampire novels I've read, here's all the vampire movies I've liked. And I think I personally just prefer and think that vampires work better in a novel because you don't have to deal with this awkwardness.
This specific thing.
Yeah, of like making the attacks look real and look good. And in the book, it's just like, she bit him. And it's just like, you can imagine it in your head
Locking
however
on.
you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Neither of the movies really sell her transformations. They don't really even show them.
I like the face.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Exorcist face.
Yeah.
Just how, like, there's just this brief second of her just, like, monstrous face.
Where in the book, I think it was in the hospital scene, the police officer describes her as looking like a flying lion.
Yeah.
Just like a mouthful of razors. Mm-hmm. We don't get anything like that in either of these movies, and I'm kind of glad after rewatching this and seeing the effects.
Neither movie had the budget or even, I think, like, the special effects know-how
to make that look good.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to do that practical, and I also think that would need, like, a lot of special care.
Brief spoiler. You get something like that in the comic book.
Okay.
But it's a comic book.
Which is a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
It's not... the worst thing you can... Like, if you're reading a comic, you can go, I don't like the art. Mm-hmm. But you can't go, it looks fake.
Yeah.
You know?
And I will say, the art in the comic book is of a particular style, and I don't know if
I've read the first issue because the American Blu-ray came with the comic.
Yeah. I don't know if I love or dislike it, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's not bad. I just don't know if this is the kind of art that I specifically enjoy.
It reminds me of all the times they've done Silent Hill comic books, and I hate all the Silent Hill comic books, but it's a very weird... It almost reminds me of, like, halfway between an oil painting and surrealism. Mm-hmm. Like, they're like, I want to do realistic humans, but not really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do. I do know what you mean. Okay. What else on the Okay, so Oscar and his parents... So, like, they almost completely eliminate Virginia and, in this one, Larry.
Yeah.
Which...
And instead have the cop be sort of the focus.
Which I didn't like. I guess it works for the movie.
I think it's...
But I don't prefer it.
I think it is a good idea done poorly. Mm-hmm. I think if they would have focused... They needed more of the cop for me to give a fuck.
Yeah, because I didn't give a fuck about the cop.
I think they needed to have him doing more investigating. Maybe not a lot, but even like 10 minutes. Because, like, one of the big things when it came to, like, Virginia and Larry in the book is, like, you care about them because you spend so much time with them. Where in this, the cop just kind of shows up instead of Larry because, well, they didn't have him do anything.
Yeah, and he takes his place and gets gutted in the bathroom.
I do kind of like the scene, not the attack part, because, again, it looks super fake.
Yeah.
But when Oscar looks at him and then shuts the door.
Yeah, where you see his hand, and it's like, oh, he's reaching out to help him get up, and nope, he's not.
And that's sort of not Oscar, Owen's.
Owen, I'm sorry.
His Rubicon.
I am going to keep calling him Oscar.
I'm going to become a grouch from calling him Owen.
Yeah, I hate it. Like, it's not even...
Oscar's an American as a name Americans use.
Yeah, it's... whatever.
Maybe it's not spelled the same, but you could...
No, it's a C instead of a K, but whatever.
Yeah, like, you just use the Oscar.
You could change it to a C and I wouldn't get upset.
Because then I wouldn't have to keep doing this.
Yeah, and, like, Abby isn't a gender-ambiguous name.
Yeah.
Like, Eli sounds feminine, but it's actually short for Elias, which is a male name. But what's Abby short for? Abraham?
It's because some producer said we can't have him be gay. Even though this was after Interview with the Vampire, so gay vampire fans were a thing.
Yeah, I think gay vampire fans have been a thing since whenever Carmella.
Yeah. But I probably harping on this hypothetical producer too much.
Yeah, I mean, the movie isn't... It's not the worst movie ever made, but it has a lot of good.
I do like both of these movies. I have a lot more problems with them on these rewatches.
I can imagine where I would have had less issues watching them without having read the book first. Most of my issues with the Swedish movie are just preference things, where I'm not into the same kind of artsy-fartsy filmmaking that you like.
Yeah.
There's only, like... I could only really think of, like, two things from the Swedish movie that I thought were, well, that was done poorly. I wish they could have done that better. The rest of the stuff from the Swedish movie that I don't like are really just preference things. This movie has a little bit more quality issues, but there are good things in this movie as well.
Yeah, it's weird because the budget helps it in a lot of scenes. Mm-hmm. And then the budget also goes, well, we can do a CGI scene.
I liked the melted face in the Swedish version more.
Yeah, I really liked the melted Swedish face.
And I was mad. I was mad because I was excited to watch these movies because I wanted to see them. I wanted to see him pour the acid on his face and watch it melt.
Yeah.
And it cuts away, and I got mad, and then I was starting to think of it, like, but, I mean, like, that would be hard to do. Like, I mean, like, how do you even do that? And I guess if they did do it, it would have had to been the CGI, and it probably would have looked terrible. But then you eventually do get to see his face. It was just kind of a slow burn, and it does look really good once you see it.
Okay, so I gotta ask, when Hawken gets caught, both versions, one, he's tying up a kid in the gym, and his friends happen to come by, and in the other one, he's hiding in the kid's car, and a friend comes in the car. I think it's really funny when the friend comes in the car, and they like focus on his face, and he's like he never considered that was a possibility.
I laughed through the entire scene in the American version. I thought it was...
And then, like, he, like, puts his bag in the back and is scooting the seat.
I was confused. Like, I wasn't sure if I was laughing at it or with it in the American versions. Like, how did you not think that this was a possibility?
I think part of it's on purpose. I don't think it's on as purpose as my laughter would suggest.
Yeah, I laughed at it like it was...
Like a comedy.
Yeah, like, this is so stupid.
Because at first they kind of play it like it's a joke.
Yeah.
He gets...
He's like, oh, fuck.
And then they keep doing stuff like he's gonna get caught. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are you trying to raise tension or are you trying to get me to laugh?
Yeah.
Matt Reeves, can I ask you? I guess we can just chalk that up on him being tired and wanting to get caught.
Yeah, which I think ultimately is what it is, but it just... It seems weird.
But I wanted to ask, like, which do you prefer in terms of Hawkins getting caught?
From, like, a serious filmmaking perspective, the Swedish version.
Okay.
In terms of enjoyment, the American version, just because I laughed constantly at it.
Same. That is also my answer.
I didn't mention this. The dog in the Swedish version. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
I was like, why are you tying this kid up? There's literally cars right there. Why are you so stupid?
I honestly think that was a budget thing. Like, they got, like, a... It's like the scene from The Langoliers when they... this is one of my favorite, like, little pieces of that movie, is when they look out of the plane and go, there's no one moving down there, but you can see cars moving from the plane scene.
It's been a long time since I've seen that, so I'm not... I'm sure, yeah.
And in this movie, it's like they weren't accounting for the fact that people live in a city and might drive by.
It's really funny. I had a really funny experience with The Langoliers because I actually, like, love the novella just for being, like, serious. Mm-hmm. And then I do love the movie, but for the complete opposite.
It's so goofy. It's
just because it's stupid and I love it.
It's so great. But that's another great party movie.
But I think the novella is actually like a legitimately like good like horror science fiction book.
I really need to read it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it at some point.
I'll kill you all. I'll drive you crazy and I'll kill you all. I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Scary shit. Are either of these movies scary?
They don't scare me. I think that there's some, like, aspects of it that are kind of socially frightening. Bullying's the big one.
But the DVD cover of Let Me In says terrifying!
I think that I mean, of course, that's all marketing.
Yeah.
I do like these movies, but I don't like them because they're terrifying vampire movies.
Because they're not. At least not to me. I can imagine as a kid, maybe it would scare me.
I think if they would have leaned like even 5 or 10% more into Ellie being like truly this monster that's just, or it's Abby being this monster that's
Abraham.
Abraham. I need to replace this old guy because he keeps fucking up.
Abraham Whistler. That's why he named his daughter Abby, because he named her after himself. Abby is short for Abraham.
Hire us, Hollywood.
But like you said, the scariest part is the bullying. That's like the only part that I like felt like on edge in either movie. And the pool scenes, like I have
because the vampire, especially like Ellie in the Swedish version, isn't like the main problem for the main character.
No, they're the love interest for the character.
Yeah, it would be like asking, is Twilight scary because Edward's a vampire?
I assume not.
No, yeah. I mean, it's kind of scary that he stands in her room without her consent and watches her sleep.
That's super scary.
Yeah.
I forget what we watched or read where I said that was the scariest part, that somebody watched them sleep. I forget what it was.
I mean, I've watched people sleep, but they were already in my bed.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's different.
I've watched Beck sleep because we sleep in the same room.
Yeah, but I don't sneak into other people's... they didn't even share a house.
Yeah.
He was breaking into this high school girl's house to watch her sleep because she smells so good.
Damn.
And it's supposed to be romantic. Twilight's unintentionally terrifying.
Robert Pattinson is in the new Ghibli movie.
Does he play the bird? I want him to be the bird.
No, he does not play the bird.
Oh.
By the way, that is the trippiest, like, most fucked up Ghibli movie that ever there was.
Really? Wow.
There's like the bar on just like being strange. It's the most strange one by like a long mile.
That's
like
pretty
2
cool.
miles.
I kind of want to see it now. I mean, I wanted to see it before. Anyway, what were we saying?
All right,
it's not scary.
It's not scary. All right, and we already talked about the effects on both.
Yep.
Oh my God! Are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
So Kings and Koontz, my king in both, my king and my Koontz are the same for both movies. My king for both movies is Eli, both, I think it's Leanne Lee Anderson or Lena Lee Anderson and Chloe Grace Moretz. I think they both do a great job. Even though not for a second do I believe that Chloe Grace Moretz is a gender ambiguous character. But
yeah.
If you want to come at me for that, I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
I agree with you, so. What's your Koontz?
The pool scene for both.
I love the pool scenes. Or the pool scene in the first one.
How did Eli get in?
I made inferences that the other one...
All the characters are in the same position that they were in when he goes under the water.
I guess I didn't think about it that hard.
Like, the one kid that is alive is sitting in the same spot on the bleachers that he's in when Oscar goes under the water.
I guess I just didn't notice that.
They just decided... They just said, okay, we'll ignore the rule that we used for our movie and hope that nobody notices. It's lazy writing, and it bothers the hell out of me.
In the movie universe, pools are public spaces.
I mean, maybe.
That's a better explanation then.
I did think that it was very convenient in the book that a student happened to be there by the door that she could talk into letting him in.
If I would rewrite the book or rewrite that scene, I would have the same thing happen, but like Eli be like on the verge of death after killing them all. Mm-hmm. Like play through the pain. Yeah,
what we went through this thing where we see that he bleeds when he goes in without being invited. Why not just make that what happens?
Yeah, like he goes in, he still murders everybody, and then like Oscar or Owen has to drag the body out. I think that's how I would rewrite that scene.
Another thing that bothered me immensely about the pool scene in the Swedish version is that Oscar is not in the middle of the pool, but he's like 5-6 feet out into the pool, and then the bully is like, "Come here," and he swims to the edge of the pool. I'm like,
don't do that.
What are you doing? Like, that makes zero sense. In the American version, they at least made like, okay, they chase him and then they throw him in and then they pull him back out.
Yeah, like they grab him.
Yeah.
Like he pulls a knife out like he's going to defend himself.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, it made zero sense, and I didn't like it.
I just love the way it looks.
I also don't like the way it looks because the pool scene in the book was like one of the scenes that I had a hard time picturing in my head how that would happen. Because like in the book, Eli like comes through the glass and then rips the two kids' heads off and then gets Oscar and leaves. And I just wanted to see like, how does that happen? And in both movies, you just see Oscar underwater, and I
love it. I love seeing the feet get dragged across the pool and then the head falls in.
I would rather see what's going on above the water.
My king for both movies is the relationship. I still find this to be one of the most adorable relationships just that I've ever experienced.
That was my king for the book, and if I liked Oscar in either movie, and we didn't even talk about it for the American movie, but I think I dislike Oscar in that movie even more than I dislike him in the Swedish movie. And I don't even have like a particular reason. It's just like,
because he's not fat.
It's not.
I know it's
not how I picture the character. Like that is, to me, that's not Oscar.
I think the biggest problem for him in the American movie is they lean way too much into the like being a little psychopath.
He's a total freak. Yeah. And he's also super thirsty.
Yeah.
Which he's like, I'm watching these people fuck through my telescope.
In the Swedish version, he is like a little psychopath, but he's also like a little kid.
Yeah, he's more of a normal kid.
In this one, he's like, no, he's a little monster.
Yeah.
But I still like whenever they're interacting.
I would have liked it more if I liked Oscar, but it wasn't terrible in either movie. I really like Eli in both, and I really don't like Oscar in both, so it hurts the relationship for me. Mm-hmm. Plus, I just like, in the book, you get so much more detail.
You do get a lot of detail.
Also, I wanted to bring this up. I was immensely disappointed in the Swedish movie that it left out my favorite line from the book.
Which was
where Oscar tells Eli, "You have to invite me in." And then he says it in the American one, and I applauded.
Okay, I can agree to that. My Koontz, I do want to bring up my favorite line after my Koontz. Mm-hmm. My Koontz for the Swedish version is even though I love all the artsy fartsy stuff, mm-hmm. there are points where it drags. It does have pacing issues because of that.
I had a lot of issues with the pacing in the Swedish one. It took me 5 sittings to get through the movie. Mm-hmm. I fell asleep 3 times. But I know you love this movie, and I wasn't going to come in here and just rail on it for pacing issues.
Well, even for me, I think it has pacing issues.
Okay.
Which I think the American remake does a little bit better in.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the trade-off is my Koontz, and it's the goofy-ass CGI.
Yes.
That completely takes me out of, like, 2 of the most serious scenes in the movie.
When I was watching the Swedish version, I was like, I wish they had more special effects. But in my head, I'm like, well, maybe they just decided we can't do this well, so we're just not going to do it at all. Which I don't like, but I understand. And then in the American version, it's like, that we do it, but it looks bad. And I'm like, I guess it's better to not do it. I don't like either, but I guess it's better in the Swedish version where they just leave it up to your imagination.
And since Ryan brought up his favorite line, my favorite line from the book and both of the movies is when Oscar's like making excuses for being bullied, and Eli is like, "You need to hit them," but there's 3 of them. Then hit them harder. I love that line.
It is a good one.
It is advice that I now give to people.
The hardest I laughed during either movie was when Owen hits Kenny with the metal rod.
Yeah.
I laughed so hard that I looked up a clip of it on YouTube and like saved it so I could watch it.
It's great.
It's so funny. Whack. I think you're gonna do fucking nothing. Bam. Like, and I don't really fault the kid for crying because I'm sure that hurt like a bitch.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be honest. You deserve to get hit.
Yeah.
Maybe not with a metal pole, but you deserve to get hit at some point in your life.
I think from a fairness perspective, it would have been better if Oscar decked the kid in the face. However,
There were 3 of them.
there were 3 of them, and it's possible that if he just punched him in the face, that the kid would just get back up and beat the shit out of Oscar.
My advice to people is to carry a big stick.
Yeah, I think if from the priority of Oscar being safe, he made the right decision.
Yeah. I'm gonna hit you with it.
I'm gonna hit you with it.
That is a great scene.
All right, rankings, you're up. I'm gonna hover around the top half of your list.
Okay.
I'll let you do the Swedish first.
Yeah, the Swedish one's higher. Probably, I really do like it. I think I'm going to have to put it as my new number 12.
Below the original Japanese theatrical adaptation of Ring, and above Call Girl of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Wow, above Call Girl, that's high praise. That's high praise.
Yeah, I had to ask myself, do I prefer the relationship in Call Girl of Cthulhu, or do I prefer it in this?
Which one? Because he has 2 like super sweet relationships in Call Girl of Cthulhu.
I want to watch that movie again.
So do it.
Let Me In is going to be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Maybe not as low as I thought, because I'm looking at my list. I like it better than Five Nights at Freddy's. I like it better than, maybe a little bit more than Cocaine Bear, but not a lot. I'm going to put it right below Frankenstein.
So it's your new number 28, below Boris Karloff Frankenstein, and above Cocaine Bear.
Yeah. Like, I can't see a universe where I ranked that below the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I like the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but
Yeah.
if you were to ask me which one of those I would readily watch again, I would readily watch Let Me In again.
I would rather watch the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Weird universes we live in.
I ranked the Swedish one. Okay. All right. I have these very low, but again, it's mostly a preference thing. So the other thing, I talked about the pool scene.
Uh-huh.
The other thing that I really, really didn't like and I thought was just done badly in the Swedish version, which we have not talked about, is the scene where Virginia gets attacked by the cats. I thought it was terrible.
Yeah, that's another really big, like, budget thing.
Yeah, and it to me, that was, if you're asking yourself the question, can we do this well? If not, maybe we should just not do it. I think they should have just not done that.
In a perfect universe, I probably would have replaced it with, like, a dog or something.
Yeah, or you could have had a cat.
A cat.
Like, jump on her face, scratch the shit out of her
But
face.
they wanted the scene that was in the book, which looks great in my head.
Yeah.
But even in this, it looked like toy cats were glued to a woman.
Even with the library scene in the novel, the cat scene is one of the cringiest scenes in the book. Even with the library scene. But yeah, it's hard to adapt. Okay. So I had previously ranked Let the Right One In at number 68, above Leon the Professional and below the last Voyage of the Demeter. And I did that before I watched Let Me In, and I don't know which one I like better. There are things I like about both. There are things I dislike about both. I think I'm going to ultimately have to say that the Swedish one is better. Even though I think in terms of like filmmaking preferences, the American one does more things that I like. I think that the Swedish one is ultimately the better film. It's just that it does a lot of artsy-fartsy crap that I personally do not like. But, like I said, it's a preference thing, and I resolved myself to not come in here and dump all over this movie, because I think it's a quality movie. I just think it's not made for Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wait until I get you to watch Skinamarink.
Nope. We're good. This is a Star Wars podcast starting tomorrow.
Yay!
No, it's not. Okay, homework. I don't fucking know. All right, so if you had to do an adaptation of this that wasn't a movie, miniseries, or television series, what would it be and why? I would do a choose your own adventure novel where you are Oscar and you just get to choose how you interact with Elay, and you have options where, like, you tell her that she says, "Oh, do I smell better now?" And you can choose, "No, you still smell like shit," or you can say, "Yes, you smell better." And just like you have outcomes where Eli kills you. You have outcomes where you get kidnapped and raped by Hawkins. You have outcomes where the bullies throw you in the hole in the ice
and you just drown.
Yeah, or you have outcomes where you become a vampire. You have outcomes where you become like a bodybuilder and kick everybody's ass.
Everyone in town dies.
Yeah.
My answer is almost the same, only it's a visual novel. It's a video game form.
Oh, okay. I was like a comic book? I was like,
yeah,
oh, okay, yeah.
Like the original Higurashi games.
Okay, like Doki Doki. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Only I would have you play as multiple characters. Like, there'll be scenes where you're playing as Stefan and you're doing all the investigating shit. You can botch the investigation.
Like I said in the novel episode, I don't dislike any of those specific subplots, but I did not miss
Stefan
at all.
I think that if you were going to do Stefan, you either have to do him more or excise him. And the American movie decided to just kind of go halfway.
I'm curious if the TV show does all those little subplots.
I might end up watching it.
I'm not. It's not a priority for me.
It would be like a down the road if I have absolutely nothing else going on.
That never happens for me. I haven't been bored in 14 years, so...
I'm always bored.
Okay, so for further reading, I have a few. If you like these kind of... these types of, like, European kind of artsy-fartsy movies that also have a little bit of a thrill to them, definitely check out Leon the Professional. I felt like I was watching Leon the Vampire. That's the movie I was watching when I was watching the Swedish one.
Twilight. Watch Twilight.
The other movie, like, two movies kept flashing in my head as I was watching the Swedish one. One was Leon the Professional, the other was Lost in Translation.
Which one's Lost in Translation?
The Bill Murray, he's in Japan.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm there.
And then the other one, if you really like watching... If you like the American movie and you just like watching a super talented actress, Chloe Grace Moretz, being in a subpar adaptation of a great book, also watch her version of Carrie.
I'd also recommend Midnight Mass as artsy-fartsy vampire stuff.
It also, it didn't occur to me until I made this recommendation, but there's a lot of parallels with Carrie with just like the bullying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just like in Stephen King stuff in general, because how big a theme bullying is in Stephen King. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, speaking of Stephen King, upcoming on the Horror of Babylon, next Sunday, we are reviewing his Dark Tower short story, The Little Sisters of Illyria, which goes along with The Gunslinger. Wait a minute, that can't be right. Oh, no, wait. Hold on. I've got these backwards. Okay, so next Sunday, January 7th, we're reviewing The Gunslinger, which is the first Dark Tower book. It's the first Sunday in January, so we're doing a Dark Tower book. The next Sunday... January 14th, we're doing the accompanying short story, The Little Sisters of Illyria by Stephen King. On January 4th, we are reviewing Blade Trinity. Thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and Ben, the Fourth Patron of Hope, and Mia the Fifth, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain.
Oh, and thank you to Horsemen Comics Gaming, which you can visit in New Mexico. And at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, at the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you can shop online at shop.forhorsemancomics.com. And thank you to the proprietor, Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas. Don't run away, because there's a couple comments on our TikTok that I don't understand, and I think maybe you can explain, because you're constantly online.
Yeah, I'm terminally online.
Thank you to our patrons. Stay tuned for our socials. Thank you for rewatching both of these movies and recording with me tonight.
It was a great time.
And stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.